evil triumphs when good people do nothing. I believe you, members of this committee, are very good people.
Border Patrol have been able to access this data that's been collected in Washington State, and so the risk to vulnerable communities is paramount.
Enough is enough. Sex buyers cause harm. We are asking you to do something.
Here's the bottom line of this, companies sell a product that hurts people in Washington State that people are using to get high and really messing up their brains. We're going to put an end to that sale.
At its core, this bill functions like a new tax on beverage containers. People pay more up front and then have to jump through hoops to get their own money back.
The second week of the legislative session has come and gone, and it is not slowing down. In this week's episode of In Session, we break down multiple bills that were introduced aimed at putting guardrails on the data collected from the controversial flock cameras. We'll also look at a new proposal that could end up costing you more when you buy bottles and cans. And we'll explain the push for a new purple alert. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christine Pei. For the first time, lawmakers in Olympia are saying automatic license plate reader cameras like flock systems are out of control. King 5 immigration reporter Sharon Yu looks at the two bills being considered to set new limits on how license plate data is collected and used.
Supporters of the bill say limiting the use of flock will protect vulnerable people, including immigrants. Opponents say that it's clipping the wings of a useful law enforcement tool. Flock cameras, or automatic license plate readers, were introduced to Washington State around 2022, with Yakima PD being one of the first agencies to install it to fight crime. Now, more than 80 jurisdictions statewide use the technology, including Centralia Police.
It is just simply data points in time. We don't know where you're going. We don't know who's in the car. We have no idea where you're coming from. It's just a data point that we use for investigations.
But last October, the University of Washington Center for Human Rights reported federal agents accessed flock data to pull over immigrants. Since then, immigrant advocacy groups have been fighting to take the cameras offline.
Members that we work with directly and telling us we don't know if it's safe to go to work that day, if it's safe to go to school, and we have to do something about it.
Washington currently does not have any rules regulating flock, while states like Utah, Colorado, and 14 other states do. The proposed bills would limit federal agencies from accessing flock and would force agencies to delete raw data, including pictures of vehicles and their license plates, within 72 hours of collection. But opponents of the bill say that's not long enough to investigate a crime.
The 72-hour retention limit is too short for real-world investigations. A modestly longer window, closer to 30 days, with strict access controls and audit requirements would protect privacy and enabling investigators to identify suspects or suspect vehicles.
Senators who co-sponsored the bill showed concern for how the data is used is bipartisan.
We've seen reports that have shown how the technology is being wielded against community members without their knowledge.
What time you drop your kids off at school, when and where you attend religious services, how often, which kind of doctor you're going to visit. It struck me. You know, these cameras vacuum up all data regardless of whether there's criminal wrongdoing.
Nearly everyone who turned out for the hearing agreed more guidelines are needed in the state. It's a matter of fine-tuning the details. In Olympia, Sharon Yu, King 5 News.
More than 600 immigrant advocates from all over Washington state rallied at the Capitol steps on Thursday for their annual Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Day. Historically, it has been a day for immigrant advocacy groups to lobby lawmakers and tell them what legislation they're hoping to see pass. While that also happened, the emotions were running high, with many people bringing up ICE arrests that they have heard about or witnessed in their communities. One mother from Wenatchee said when her two little girls witnessed an ICE arrest outside of their school, she struggled to tell them why it was happening.
It's cruel, but I let her know that we are living through difficult times.
Y que la única forma de defendernos
And the only way to defend ourselves
es levantar nuestra voz
is to raise our voice
y educarnos
and educate ourselves
para estar listos.
To be prepared.
The Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network was the main organizer of the event. Some of their legislative priorities include funding for the Deportation Defense Hotline, which is the first number many people call after they have been directly impacted by ICE. When a man with autism walked away from his Arlington home, his family called for help, but police said there wasn't much they could do. Well, now there is a push to create a new alert for missing vulnerable adults. Olympia Bureau Chief Drew Mickelson joins us now from the Capitol to break down the movement behind the Purple Alert. Drew.
Yeah, Christine, this idea came out of a high school government classroom, and now it's being debated here at the Washington State Capitol. You're, of course, familiar with those amber alerts for missing children. There's a silver alert system for missing seniors. This would create a purple alert that would be activated when people like Jonathan Huang disappear.
My brother, Jonathan, has been missing for 295 days.
The Huang family wishes they got more help. Last March, 21-year-old Jonathan Huang walked away from the family's Arlington home. He has autism and the mental capacity of a 9-year-old. The family fears he was kidnapped. They haven't seen him since. They pleaded for police to send out an alert, but unlike children or seniors, the state does not have one for vulnerable adults. Jonathan's sister, Irene Pfister, backs the proposal to create a purple alert for missing adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities and those who were suicidal.
In our case, a purple alert would have provided a clear process and resources that would have brought my brother home. A purple alert can't help Jonathan now, but in passing this bill, you will save the lives of countless others.
This situation for her and her family hasn't been the greatest, and the case has been not great.
Jonathan's sister teaches at Lake Washington High School.
It doesn't feel right knowing that citizens that need extra help staying safe don't have the proper systems in place to help ensure their safety.
After seeing the impact on Ms. Pfister, several of her students started researching purple alerts in other states and reached out to State Senator Democrat Manka Dhingra, who agreed to sponsor a bill.
In Washington state, our current alert systems are inaccessible for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Geethika Burgapoli says the experience taught her the importance of getting involved with your representatives.
Evil triumphs when good people do nothing. I believe you, members of this committee, are very good people.
The Huang family is grateful for the work of the students. They hope legislators are equally supportive.
I have faith in your goodness to pass this bill, to do the right thing.
In addition to the purple alert, this law would also create an ebony alert that would be activated whenever a black resident in the state of Washington is reported missing. That was just a public hearing. No official votes have been taken on that bill as of yet. Christine?
So, Drew, while lawmakers look to protect some of our state's most vulnerable residents, they're also considering a proposal that could hit shoppers right at the checkout line. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is one that would probably impact just about everybody in the state. They're calling it the Recycling Refunds Act, and it's aimed at boosting recycling in the state, but it could make your favorite beverage cost a little bit more. So, of course, it's sparking a lot of debate here in Olympia. If you've lived across the country, you may be familiar with the idea of an additional 10-cent bottle deposit. This would force consumers in the state to pay 10 cents for every can, bottle, glass, plastic, or aluminum. And then when you're done with the bottles, you can return them and get your dimes back. Advocates say a main driver behind this is litter.
We and our other environmental groups do a ton of litter cleanups with community groups all across the state, in beaches, along the highway, in open space. And one of the things that we find a lot of are beverage containers, and also the things that go along with beverage containers, like the caps.
Those against the bill call it a new tax that would raise grocery costs and argue it would be a burden on consumers.
This bill is nothing more than a new 10-cent tax on consumers for beverage containers. It raises the cost, for example, of a 24-pack of water by nearly 50%. It also uses unredeemed deposits to pay for activities of the program, counting on people not returning beverage containers.
If someone chooses to not return the bottles, that extra money, the unrefunded money, would go to bottling companies mostly. This is not a big moneymaker for the state of Washington. It's not the first time this has come up. 4 different times a bill like this has been introduced here in Olympia.
So, Drew, Oregon apparently has a similar system in place. Any idea how it works over there?
Yes, well, there was someone who came to the Capitol to explain it. He's a big fan of it, and here's how he says the whole process works.
As I go to the store, I buy my beverage containers like these right here. I bring them home, I drink them, and then I have a little bag that lives under my counter that I fill up. And when it's filled up, I take it to the store and I have a little app. And I go, there's a kiosk outside, there are a container outside the grocery store. I beep the app to unlock the door. I throw my bag in. Someone takes that bag back to a central location daily, counts it up, and it gets added to my account. And next time I go to the store, if I want to redeem that money, I get that money back. And big grocery stores in Oregon even give me a 20% bonus because they want to make sure that I spend my dollars right in that store that day. It's really simple to use.
So I used to live in Portland, Oregon, and I know a lot of folks down there who don't like this idea at all. They say it's a big mess to set the cans and bottles aside. They don't like that you can't crush the cans. So a lot of people just say it's not even worth going through all that trouble. But we'll see. This bill is slated to go through an executive session vote in that committee, which does mean it could likely pass out of committee. We'll definitely keep an eye on it.
Okay, that will certainly be an interesting bill to follow. Drew, thank you so much. We'll check back in with you shortly. So a bill moving through Olympia could change how medical debt is handled in Washington. Senate Bill 5993 would ban interest on medical debt. That means unpaid hospital and doctor bills would not grow over time. The bill would also limit how long medical debt can be collected through the courts. Supporters say it would prevent patients from falling deeper into debt over care they didn't plan for. Critics argue it could impact providers and the cost of care. Lawmakers are moving fast right now to toughen Washington's laws on sex trafficking. They want the changes in place before international travelers come to town for the World Cup. Advocates and law enforcement anticipate a massive increase in tourism, which they believe will result in an increased demand for sex trade.
Enough is enough. Sex buyers cause harm. We are asking you to do something. The World Cup is coming. Something must be done.
There's a push by lawmakers and leaders across Western Washington to strengthen laws around sex trafficking and buying sex. House Bill 2526 would bump up the penalty for paying for sex from a simple misdemeanor to a Class C felony, the lowest felony classification.
What we're trying to do in this bill is to dampen the market for buying sex.
It would also double the fines. That money goes towards survivor services and law enforcement investigations.
Right now, our state's laws are constructed in a way that provides avenues for stopping individual traffickers while simultaneously allowing trafficking as a system to thrive.
Advocates told the House Community and Safety Committee this is a necessary move.
The majority were trafficked into it. The majority never received trauma-informed therapy. The majority do not want to be there, and the majority cannot be here today because they are still being controlled and exploited.
However, several sex workers testified against the bill, saying it would not help them and believe it would only hurt them.
If you care so much about workers being exploited, please address the abysmal cost of living. That is what drives many to the streets. Ask yourself why we must be classified only as either victims or criminals. If you truly do see us as victims, then please listen to us sincerely before passing legislation that can actually harm us further.
Democratic State Representative Chris Stearns, a sponsor of the bill, says he wants it to pass to help women of color who are disproportionately impacted by sex trafficking.
It is such an important thing, and it affects Native Americans and Black and brown people at such high disproportionate rates that it really is killing us. How can we stop this? We're just losing too many people.
So last year, the bill received a hearing in the same committee, but failed after an amendment was proposed to only raise the penalty for public sex buying. Well, coming up next on In Session, lawmakers are pushing to ban nitrous oxide, better known as laughing gas. We'll break down the bill and the reason behind it. And we're going to head back to Drew Mickelson in Olympia, where we hear from the leaders of the House and Senate from both parties on tax proposals and how federal tariffs are impacting state services. Lots of debate on bills in Olympia so far this session, but lawmakers have not revealed how they plan on handling the current $2 billion deficit in the state budget. Republican and Democratic leaders from the House and Senate disagree on how that should be handled. Olympia Bureau Chief Drew Mickelson spoke with lawmakers about that this week. Drew.
Christine, there's been a lot of focus on immigration laws. You heard about the bottle bill, lots of big topics here. But what about this deficit and how they're going to make up for that? So will it be taxes? Will it be cuts? Will it be a little bit of both? We are starting to hear that the Democrats who control the majority here are looking at maybe raising some taxes and fees. The cigarette tax could easily go up. That's one idea. Another one would charge some new charges for brand new tires that you buy. The Republicans obviously hate all of those ideas. If you follow politics here in Olympia, you know that. They also don't like this idea of the millionaires tax that Governor Ferguson is backing.
For a person who seems, claims to care about representing the people and the democratic process, to ignore the repeated opposition to the income tax and the undeniable economic impact of this sort of a proposal. So and the last thing I would say is he has said on a couple occasions he will only do this if there's some tax relief for small businesses. But we've yet to see anything that's really meaningful. Everything is just words. Words that, saying that we're going to protect small businesses is not the same as actually protecting small businesses.
How are we helping affordability by making drivers pay a new fee to the state for every tire they get? But more alarmingly, the bill not only prohibits tire sellers the bill prohibits tire sellers from informing customers about that tax. The bill says that it's illegal for the seller of tires to tell the customers that they're going to pay this tax. So, Democrats not only are making life more unaffordable, but now they're trying to hide the ball and make it so consumers don't realize what Olympia politicians are doing to make everyday essentials like tires more expensive.
We had a lot of these very same arguments here in Olympia just last year when legislators also were trying to find ways to make up for a budget deficit. What happened in the past year? Well, the Democrats who are in charge here say that it's all because of the Donald Trump administration.
If you just look at like large vehicles, trucks, tariffs are projected to eat up 25% of the costs of like buying a vehicle, 10% increase for lumber, things like that are related to tariffs in the most trade-dependent state in the country. So there are limited things that we can do, but we are trying to work in all of the spaces that we can.
A lot of the affordability challenges are healthcare and housing. And as the speaker said, this is all driven by Trump. We didn't have to have this affordability crisis that's made so much worse by what he has been doing. Just today, before I came here, I was testifying in the Healthcare Committee in providing options for public hospitals, because we know that they're going to be strapped and people have to go there because who else is going to provide them care?
Republicans say that rather than focusing on Donald Trump, they would like to see Democrats focus on making things more affordable in the state of Washington. Democrats say they are working on a bill that would lower housing construction starts, which in theory would make the cost of living cheaper in the state of Washington. Christine?
So, Drew, the governor has mentioned eliminating some tax breaks as a way to help the state. Is that still on the table?
Yeah, there are more than 700 tax exemptions in the state, and one that they're focusing on this year, and there was a hearing this past week, would eliminate the tax breaks that currently data centers and the development of those enjoy. So that's one area that is potentially getting a little bit of momentum here at the Capitol.
Okay, Drew, thank you very much. And also in this session, some lawmakers are now working to ban the retail sale of laughing gas or nitrous oxide in Washington after a spike in deaths. Kyle Iboshi has a story.
They line the shelves of smoke shops, convenience stores, and gas stations, big, brightly colored tanks of nitrous oxide with candy-like flavors. But a new bill introduced in Washington's legislature would ban the retail sale of nitrous oxide.
The fact that it's being sold over the counter in, bright colors and fancy names and stuff is just ridiculous. Like, we got to get this stuff off the shelves.
Senator Drew Hansen and Representative Joe Timmons, who proposed the ban, are sounding the alarm after a spike in dangerous cases, including deaths.
Here's the bottom line of this. Companies sell a product that hurts people in Washington state that people are using to get high and really messing up their brains. We're going to put an end to that sale.
For years, people used small doses of nitrous oxide or whippets as a party drug by inhaling small cartridges used to make whipped cream. But a KGW investigation exposed how this potentially dangerous drug has grown in popularity and the consequences of misuse, including a Gresham couple temporarily paralyzed.
I completely lost it and I couldn't walk. I had to physically learn how to walk again.
In May, Oregon lawmakers passed a bill making it tougher for kids to access nitrous oxide.
I just don't think that people even realize what this is or what it does or how easy it is to get it.
The proposed retail ban in Washington would allow exemptions for legitimate use, such as medical, dental, or culinary. But selling nitrous oxide in convenience stores or gas stations would be banned. The Washington bill is headed to committee, where a hearing will be held in the next few weeks. For In Session, I'm Kyle Aboshi.
Early educators are calling on lawmakers in Olympia to make changes to childcare. They want to create a board made up of state officials, employers, and parents to address what it calls a childcare crisis. The group argues that political pressures and low wages and time off are a few factors leading a staffing shortage statewide.
We know we don't have enough childcare available right now, and to talk about ways to improve affordability and make sure that the workers are being fairly compensated.
As far as wages, CareerBridge, the state's resource for career planning, shows the average hourly rate for a childcare worker is $18 an hour, or about $37,000 per year. The state's average salary is $95,000 per year. Up next, we go back to Drew Mickelson in Olympia for a look at what's to come during week 3 of the session. It has been a busy start to this legislative session, and it's not expected to slow down. Olympia Bureau Chief Drew Mickelson joins us now with a look at what's to come. Drew.
Christine, we're already 1/5 of the way through this 60-day session. There are some deadlines looming for the bills that have been introduced, so there's a flurry of activity to come. A couple of bills that we're keeping an eye on would deal with the state's prison population. One would automatically qualify those who were wrongly convicted of crimes for cash payments from the state for damages. There's also a bill that passed out of the House last year that would give prisoners the right to vote from inside their prison cells. The only exception, those with death sentences originally. Now, that passed out of committee last year, but it still could come to the floor this year. The sponsor sure hopes that's the case. Christine?
And Drew, we understand there could also be some changes to laws on our roads and highways.
Yes, as you may have heard recently, the state's had a sharp increase in the number of traffic fatalities over the past decade or so. So there are a number of bills that would try to do something about that. One would make it easier for someone to be charged with reckless driving. Currently, it's a judgment call. Someone has to show, quote, willful or wanton disregard for safety. A proposal here would automatically trigger that charge when someone is going more than 30 miles an hour over the limit. And as we've talked about before, there's still that move to lower the drunk driving threshold for the BAC from 0.08 to 0.05. It seems like there is a little more support than there has been in the last couple of sessions, but we'll have to see if that ends up passing. And Christine, I know an issue that's close to your heart, that official state shark that we talked about last week. That bill is going to get an official hearing, which is a good sign for the fans of the blunt-nosed six-gill shark. We'll see if that bill has enough support to pass in this short session. Back to you.
Hey, that's great news. We will certainly be watching. Thanks so much, Drew. Drew Mickelson reporting in Olympia for us. Thank you. Well, we will, of course, have more on all of these topics next week on In Session. And to see all of our coverage so far, you can text the word session to 206-448-4545, and we'll send you a link. New episodes will be released weekly through the rest of the session. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next time.